Hi everyone, welcome to Elite Tutorials. If you're not a part of Elite Tutorials and want the images of the textbook, you can call us on 9699599299 and we shall email the images to you. As we start with a new chapter today, you come down with any doubts and difficulties, you can jot down your doubts and we shall solve them in the live doubt solving sessions. Right? So in the last video, we have finished the second chapter, that is physical and chemical changes. Now we're starting with a new chapter that is called as elements, compounds and mixtures. Okay, now when we talk about elements, compounds and mixtures, what are this? We've all heard the names elements, compounds and mixtures. So we are going to learn that in much more detail. Okay, so when we talk about all the substances that exist around us, we call substances, that is, we can say that everything exists around us as matter, like what we studied in chapter number 1. So matter can be broadly classified as living things and non-living things, right? So in living things, we say that living things would be plants and animals. But when we talk about non-living things broadly can be classified into two categories, that is pure substances and impure substances. Right? Now, what are these pure substances? These pure substances basically would be having certain characteristics of their own. We say they don't have impurities, right? And they would be having maybe the composition of the substances which are mixed in them remains constant. So today what we are going to emphasize more on is pure and impure substances. Or else we can also broadly classify matter in and around us as pure substances. In pure substances, we'll be talking about elements and compounds, and impure substances as in mixtures, right? So mixtures can also be called as impure substances because they are two substances are mixed together. There might be an impurity. Now, impure, that does not mean having impurities. Okay, so when I say in chemistry pure substance means it has some definite set of properties. So to understand that better, we start with the first thing, that is called as pure substances. So let's see the first thing. So when we talk about pure substances, we say pure substances are homogeneous in nature. What is homogeneous? Homogeneous means uniformly mixed, right? So if I talk about salt is sodium chloride. So sodium and chlorine are uniformly mixed. So that makes it a homogeneous substance. Okay, so pure substances are homogeneous. Okay, now a pure substance can even mean an element. So when I say oxygen gas, so oxygen gas can also be a pure substance. Or else when two different elements are mixed together, they also can form a pure substance. But that has to be uniformly mixed. But remember, all homogeneous solutions are not pure substances. Okay, so we'll get to that point as we come down to the impure substances. Okay, they have a definite set of properties. Now when I say they have a definite set of properties, as in if I am talking about sodium chloride, the sodium chloride will have its own properties. If I talk about water will have its own properties. It cannot have properties of some other substance, right? So they have their definite set of properties. They do not have any other properties. Means basically, why are we saying this point? Because when we are going to talk about mixtures, okay, in mixtures what happens is two substances are mixed together. So they have their own properties. So the mixture, okay, I give you a simple example. If I take a bowl of red and blue beads, so basically that bowl would look a mix of red and blue because both of the beads are showing their own properties. Whereas that will not be in the case of a pure substance. Right? Okay, so the pure substance itself would be having its own properties. It does not have properties of other substances. Okay, and moving to the third point, the composition cannot be altered by any physical means. So I cannot change the composition of salt. Means salt is made up of NaCl that is mixed in a fixed proportion. I cannot change that by heating it or boiling it or doing anything. Okay, so I may only change the state. That is what we've studied in matter, interconversion of matter, that is interconversion of state, means from solid to liquid to gas. But I am not changing the composition, means the chemical makeup. right? So that is what is making a pure substance. Now when we talk about pure substances in much more detail, we talk about pure substances as, or we broadly classify pure substances as elements and, see, pure substances can be classified as elements and compounds in more detail. So right now we start with the first one, that is elements. I'm sure you've understood about pure substances. Okay, before we move to an element, okay, now as I said, sodium chloride is a pure substance, right? Water is also a pure substance because in that hydrogen and oxygen are combined together in a fixed proportion and it's homogeneous. But my question to you is salt in water a pure substance? No. Because here I am mixing two different substances. Okay, and the proportion may not be fixed. So I told you not every homogeneous solution is a pure substance, right? What is homogeneous? Uniformly mixed. So salt has uniformly mixed in water, but that does not mean it's a pure substance. Why? Because the amount is not fixed. It may not be fixed in a proper proportion, and it might, okay, and now the salt also has its own property which is even present in salt water. Okay, and I can separate salt and water. I can separate the salt from salty water by physical means. Okay, so basically by evaporation I can get back salt. So that is not coming under the category of pure substances. I hope you've understood this. So it may not mean two pure substances mixed together will be forming a pure substance, right? Okay, so basically it's not that every homogeneous substance is considered as pure. Okay, so that is one thing that you need to remember. Okay, now moving further, we come down to elements. Okay, elements are basic substance, a basic unit. Okay, they cannot be broken further. Till now we have 118 elements that have been discovered. Okay, so as discoveries are happening, more elements have been discovered, but out of these 118 elements, it's found that there are 82 elements which are normal and 36 which are radioactive. Now what do you understand by normal elements and radioactive elements? Okay, there are a certain group of elements which do not give out radiations. Okay, so those would be categorized as normal elements. So I can call them as non-radioactive. Non-radioactive, or else they don't give out radiations. So out of the 118 elements, we have 82 elements which are existing as non-radioactive. So they are existing naturally and they are non-radioactive. So they don't give out any kind of radiations. But the remaining 36 ones give out radiations. So these are called as radioactive, and these are artificially prepared by nuclear reactions. Right? So you need to remember this, that so they might ask you what are normal elements and what are radioactive elements. How many normal elements are known and how many radioactive elements are known. Okay, so this is the basic thing what can be asked as objectives. Okay, now when we talk more about elements, I told you element is a basic unit. It cannot be broken further. Okay, can you think about any elements? Okay. Now when you think about any elements, the first thing that might come to your mind might be oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. Yes, you're perfectly right. They are all elements. You know them, you know the names, you know the symbols, right? So you know elements and you know the symbols. Okay, and you also must be knowing the first 20 elements. You studied that in your lower standards, if not the first 10 elements, right? And when all these elements are placed together, that would be the periodic table that we'll be studying as we go further higher in higher standards. Okay, before we go in much of detail, we will be discussing the properties of elements. So let's see what are the properties of elements. Okay, before that I told you elements, we have 118 elements that have been discovered. Out of that, 82 are normal elements which are non-radioactive, which do not give out radiations, and 36 are radioactive which are giving out radiations, and they are prepared artificially by nuclear reactions. Okay, now we say what are the properties of elements. So these are all the properties of elements. Okay, elements are made up of one kind of atom only. That means what? If I am talking about oxygen, oxygen as an element would be made up of only oxygen atoms. Okay, so the composition of oxygen, when I say oxygen, element oxygen, means all of them are oxygen atoms in it. When I talk about carbon, it is all atoms are carbon. Okay, so now there is no mixing over here. So element is a basic structure, right? Okay, so element is only made up of atoms, right? And the atoms are of same kind over here. Okay, so we say they are made up of only one kind of atom. Very important, one kind of atom. So that's element. Okay, because they are made up of one kind of atom, okay, their composition is fixed, okay, and they cannot be broken. So now when I say elements, so I say, can oxygen be broken further? No, oxygen cannot be broken further because it's an element. So elements cannot be broken further except by nuclear reactions. The nuclear reactions directly hit the nucleus or affect the nucleus. Now remember one thing, whenever we talk about chemistry, in chemistry we only talk more precisely about chemical reactions, that is loss gain of electrons. Okay, so that is what happens in all the chemical equations what you write. Okay, nobody teaches you nuclear reactions. Okay, now that is going to prove to be really dangerous. So that's the reason we say that whenever we are carrying out all this, so when you write in chemical equation, we call it as a chemical reaction. Okay, nobody has taught you a nuclear reaction like bombard this blast will take place. No, nobody does that, right? Okay, so that is why when we talk about elements, we say that element, a basic element, cannot be broken down. Why? Because that nucleus is stable. But if we are carrying out a nuclear reaction, that nuclear reaction is attacking the nucleus, and now that nucleus is going to get destroyed. And that's why we say element can be broken down only by nuclear reaction. So this is one thing that you need to remember, that can be asked as a twist or fill in the blank for you, right? Okay, now as I said, element is a basic unit. But what is an element made up of? We just now said that element is made up of only one kind of atom. Means I can say that atom is the basic unit of an element, right? So quite a lot of atoms would be forming an element. So we say atom is the smallest unit of an element. That's the statement, right? That atom is the smallest unit of an element. Very important. Right? Okay, now it depends how many elements, how many atoms have combined to form that element. So some elements exist freely. Okay, so maybe like if I am talking about carbon can exist freely as only one carbon, right? Okay, so some elements exist freely, whereas some elements may be combined. Combined means they combine with other elements, or else an oxygen molecule, an oxygen will combine with another oxygen and form O2. So oxygen does not exist alone. So oxygen exists in the combined state. So when we talk about exist free, that was they would be existing alone. Okay, like usually when we talk about metals, right, we are coming to the next point in that. When we talk about metals and noble gases, they usually tend to exist alone because see, noble gases are stable, that you very well know. So they usually tend to exist alone. Metals also tend to exist alone. Whereas when we talk about non-metals like oxygen and all of that, they would be existing in a group, maybe like O and O combines together to form O2, right? Nitrogen and nitrogen might form N2, hydrogen and hydrogen might form H2. So that's how they are combined, right? Okay, so I'm sure you've understood that point. So we quickly can revise before we go down to the last point. Okay, we said that elements are made up of only one kind of atom. Everybody's got that. They cannot be broken down. They can be only broken down by nuclear reactions. Atom is the smallest part of an element, and they might exist in the free state or in the combined state. Okay, now when we talk more about elements, we broadly classify elements as metals, non-metals, metalloids and noble gases. Okay, I'm sure all of us know the properties of metals, non-metals, metalloids and noble gases. We just can discuss a few properties and a few examples. Now when we talk more about metals, metals have a nice luster. So I say metals have a metallic luster, right? Okay, metals, I'm sure you studied that in your lower standards. Metals can be made into sheets. So I call them as malleable. Okay, they can be drawn into wires. That is what causes that is what forms the wiring in the house, right? So they form an important part of circuits. So we say metals are malleable and ductile. They are good conductors of heat and electricity, right? And they usually are hard and exist in the solid state, right? And they have high densities. Yes, so you also know quite a lot of points. So these are all points of metals. They all come under the category called elements, right? Okay, let's think of a few examples of metals. Can you tell me a few examples of metals? Yes, I'm sure you're thinking sodium would have come to your mind, magnesium, calcium, aluminium, tin, mercury, right? Platinum, gold, silver, all of them come in the category of metals, right? I'm sure you know, you can jot down quite a lot of metals. Now, when we come down from metals to non-metals, okay, what are the properties of non-metals? So non-metals can usually exist in the solid state, liquid state, so bromine being a liquid non-metal, and quite a few of non-metals exist in the gaseous state. Like you have nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, all of them exist in the gaseous state. Now when we talk about non-metals, the properties of non-metals would be opposite majorly as compared to metals. So we say non-metals are non-malleable, non-ductile, bad conductors of electricity, except if you must have heard the word graphite, right? So graphite is a good conductor of electricity. Graphite is also present in your pencil. The pencil lead is graphite. Okay, now when we talk of a few examples of non-metals, can you think of any examples of non-metals? We spoke about oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. Sulfur, carbon is also a very important non-metal. And carbon has a lot of exceptions because carbon is a good conductor and carbon is also hard. And carbon has luster in the form of diamond. Yes, okay, so and also when we talk about iodine crystals, they also have luster. So these are a few exceptions in non-metals when we discuss the properties. So now I'm sure you know the non-metals, you know the metals. Let's come down to metalloids. What are metalloids? Metalloids have properties of both metals and non-metals. Okay, just a few to name: boron, silicon, germanium. Okay, so we don't usually come across much of metalloids in our syllabus, but boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, and antimony, quite a lot of them are metalloids. Okay, so to remember, you can remember boron, silicon and germanium. Noble gases. When we talk about noble gases usually don't react because they are stable. Okay, but they do have important applications like those glow bands, right? So those are those neon glow bands. And also hydrogen being flammable has been replaced by helium. So when we talk about noble gases, simple example of noble gases would be helium, neon, argon, krypton, radon, to name a few. Yes, so I'm sure all of you all have understood about elements. Okay, so remember, elements cannot be broken down further, okay, except by nuclear reactions, and they constitute pure substances. Elements are further divided into metals, non-metals, metalloids and noble gases. We have learned the properties and the examples. Moving to the next category, I talk about compounds. Okay, now when we talk about compounds, very easy. Compounds also falls in the category of pure substances, right? Now when we talk about compounds, what are compounds? Compounds are pure substances in which two or more elements are combined. Okay, so two or more elements are combined, but this is combined in a fixed ratio, right? And they cannot be separated easily. They can only be separated by chemical means. So we need to understand that whenever we are talking about compounds, they are mixed in a fixed proportion. Very important word. Okay, and they are mixed of two or made of two or more elements. Let's quickly see, or before we start talking about the properties of compounds, let's think of a few examples. Okay, to name a few examples of compounds, I can say sodium chloride, NaCl, water, I have magnesium, I can also say mercuric oxide, that is HgO, quite a lot, carbon dioxide. So all of them come under the category of compounds. So basically when we talk about compounds, the proportion is fixed. Okay, so as we'll be learning the properties of compounds, we'll be able to understand that a little better. So with that we start compounds. Compounds also falls in the category of pure substances. Let's see the first one. Okay, so now we are quickly discussing the properties of compounds. The first one, the nature of the elements remains the same. So basically when we are talking about the compound, since the compound is made up of two different elements, the nature of the element remains the same. Like example, when I talk about water, in water we have hydrogen and oxygen. Right? So the nature of hydrogen and oxygen is combined to form water. Okay, and that will remain same, uniform throughout. So if you can actually understand the first 2 points, the nature of the element remains the same. So in water, hydrogen and oxygen are combined in a similar way. Okay, so their nature remains the same. And it is also homogeneous. So basically when I talk about water, in water, the way hydrogen is bonded to oxygen, it will remain same throughout. The pattern will be fixed. So if example, if I say hydrogen is bonded to oxygen like this. So in a glass of water, every water molecule is going to be bonded in the same way. That is, one oxygen is bonded to two hydrogens. That is going to remain fixed for any water molecule that we talk. So it's always going to remain the same. So that's homogeneous, right? It's going to remain uniform all throughout. Now similarly, if I talk about NaCl, so I say NaCl is bonded like this. So every NaCl molecule is going to remain the same. Means the pattern is always going to remain the same. It's going to remain uniform whenever we talk about sodium chloride. Okay, so we understand the first 2 points, that is the nature of the element remains the same and it is always homogeneous, means uniform throughout. Whenever I talk about NaCl, all the NAs are going to be bonded to Cl in the same pattern everywhere, right? Okay, they can be broken into two or more elements and synthesized by chemical means. Okay, what does this mean? Now, when I am talking about water, for example, okay, we are sticking first to the example of water so that it's more easier for us to understand. Everybody can relate to that. Then we can talk about other examples. Now, when I talk about water, in water we know it is a composition made up of hydrogen and oxygen. So we say a compound can be broken into two or more elements, means the compound can be broken into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so it's easy. But why are we discussing this point? Because we spoke in elements it cannot be broken further, whereas compounds can be broken further, right? So compounds can be broken into their into their constituent elements. This is again done by chemical means. It cannot be just done by any physical mean. So if I want to separate hydrogen and oxygen, I cannot use any kind of magnet or maybe filtration or any kind evaporation. Okay, so over here I can only separate hydrogen and oxygen by chemical means, not by physical means, right? Also we have another point, they can be again synthesized back, means if I have hydrogen and oxygen and I combine them in a certain way, that is synthesis, then I get back the compound. Now remember, why are they saying by chemical means? Basically, if I say salt is dissolved in water, okay, so when salt is dissolved in water, that becomes physical means. Okay, I've just stirred it and salt has been dissolved in water. Now if I want to get the salt back, I can evaporate the water, right? So now I have not brought about any change in the composition. Okay, so that was not a chemical change. But whenever we are talking about a compound, I can separate the elements. Okay, I can separate the compound into constituent elements only by chemical means. Means if I take water and I subject it to basically electric current. So what will happen is water, when subjected to electric current, will separate into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, but not on evaporation, not on just using a magnet, that I can separate water into hydrogen and oxygen. So basically over here the separation into the constituent elements can only be done by chemical means, and also to regenerate it I can use chemical means. So basically formation of a compound is a chemical change, right? Okay, I hope you've understood this. Okay, I give you another example. When we talk about mercuric oxide, from mercuric oxide we can get mercury and oxygen. But when mercury and oxygen are combined in a fixed ratio, we get mercuric oxide. Similarly for carbon dioxide, okay, so basically when subjected to chemical reaction, they would be forming down the product or the compound. Also carbon dioxide reacts with water in the presence of sunlight, right, and chlorophyll, and gives you glucose or the food that is prepared, and also oxygen, right? That is a chemical reaction, that is not a physical change, that's a chemical reaction. Okay, so I hope you've understood this quite well. But all this takes place in a fixed ratio or fixed proportion. Okay, we come down to fixed proportion again. Now, as I said, and we've been discussing about this, that in a compound the constituent elements are mixed in a fixed ratio or fixed proportion. Like if for simple words the fixed ratio would be for water, I say hydrogen and oxygen are in a ratio 2:1. That is so simple. But they are also mixed in a fixed proportion by weight. Let's see this. Now let's see an example over here. Okay, now if I give you an example of maybe magnesium oxide. Okay, so magnesium oxide, I can say that in magnesium oxide the elements have combined in a ratio 1:1. But when we check for the weights, okay, so I say by weight magnesium is combined with oxygen in the ratio of 2:3. Let's see how, let's see how the ratio can be formed. So basically for finding the ratio you need to know the atomic weights. So I give you the atomic weight of magnesium, that is 24. Okay, and for oxygen I say, because it's one oxygen, the weight is 16. Now if we go to see the ratio, okay, that goes by the table of 8. So the ratio is 3:2. So we say in magnesium oxide, magnesium and oxygen are combined in the ratio 3:2 by weight. So this is by weight. Okay, but the ratio in which they are combined is 1:1. Got it? So 1:1 is the element ratio. So one magnesium has combined with one oxygen. So that's the elemental ratio. Whereas when we are talking about by weight, it is 3:2. Now this, why is it so necessary to know the ratio by weight? Because when you're carrying it out in the laboratory, okay, or when you're carrying out the synthesis in laboratory, you would need to know by weight. Okay, so that's when I can prepare it on a larger scale. Okay, similarly, if we talk about water, we know in water, hydrogen and oxygen have combined in a ratio 2:1. But what about by weight? By weight, it would be hydrogen has a weight 1. Okay, so that is because 2 hydrogens, so weight is 2, and oxygen has a weight 16. So by weight, they are in a ratio 1:8. So this is by weight. Okay, yes, so remember by weight the ratio would be different, and by the normal ratio in which they are combined would be different. So this would be the ratio and this would be the proportion by weight. So I'm sure you've understood the point by fixed proportion, that is by weight and ratio. Okay, so I'll just erase this or else you'll get confused with the points of elements. Okay, right? So I'm sure you've understood this one. Okay, so you know fixed proportion, that is fixed ratio, also when we consider by weight. Okay, let's see, we come down to the next property of compounds. They say that they do not retain their properties. Okay, very simple. When we talk about hydrogen and oxygen, okay, so as I told you, I'm again giving you an example of water. Then we go down to another interesting example. Okay, hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is highly flammable. Okay, oxygen supports burning, but when hydrogen and oxygen combine together, they form water, and water does not have either of the properties. Okay, so water is nor flammable nor supports burning, so it is used to extinguish fire. So basically, as these elements have combined, they lose their original properties and they have altogether a new set of properties. Means the compound, since it falls into the category of pure substances, it has a definite set of properties. It does not have the properties of the constituent elements. Okay, one very interesting example. When I talk about sodium chloride, okay, sodium is very dangerous. Okay, so if I place a piece of sodium on my hand, there is a high possibility that it would fall off from the other side, damaging or creating a hole on my hand. Okay, so if I hold a piece of sodium like this, my skin will melt. Okay, if I throw a piece of sodium in water, there could be an explosion. So basically, sodium is dangerous. So usually sodium, if you know, sodium is always stored under kerosene. That dangerous. Okay, when we talk about chlorine, chlorine is a poisonous gas. Okay, so chlorine when inhaled in excess can also have can create health problems, and chlorine when inhaled in excess, okay, so it is also causing suffocation. So basically it was used in the world wars, okay, as smoke bombs. Now when these two very dangerous substances like sodium and chlorine are combined together, they form sodium chloride. Now the funny thing is, when you do not have sodium chloride, that's going to turn out to be a little dangerous for your body. Okay, or it might affect your health. Why? Because you will start having blood pressure problems. Okay, so just understand how different the properties of sodium are, how different the properties of chlorine are. But when sodium and chlorine come together, they lose all of their original properties and they all have a new set of properties, which is not at all dangerous for human beings. Okay, so that is what we need to understand, that they do not retain their properties. Okay, now mechanical separation is impossible. I told you cannot separate sodium and chlorine by using a magnet, or else you cannot separate hydrogen and oxygen just by using a magnet or by carrying out filtration or maybe evaporation. Not possible. So basically separation, mechanical separation is impossible. Separation of the elements into the separation of the compound into its constituent elements can be done only by chemical means. As I told you, by passing electric current, they can be separated. That is, water can be separated by passing electric current. Okay, so mechanical separation is completely not possible. Now, the last point that we see, whenever a compound is being formed, it involves some kind of energy change. Okay, now when I talk about magnesium oxide, so when magnesium combines with oxygen, okay, so we need to heat that. And magnesium oxide, when it forms, it is a highly exothermic reaction. So it forms a white dazzling light. Okay, if you remember this, I think we had studied this under the example of exothermic reactions in the last chapter, right? Okay, so basically they give out heat. Okay, and again I can say that carbon dioxide and water combine in the presence of heat and light. Okay, so basically absorption of energy has taken place, wherein that forms what? The photosynthesis reaction. So for a compound, there is, whenever a formation of compound takes place, there is energy changes that are going to take place, right? So basically compound involves energy changes, right? Okay, so that is what you need to remember. So when we talk about sodium and chlorine, the reaction takes place in the presence of light. So addition of chlorine always takes place in the presence of light. So again, there's an energy change that is involved. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the properties of compounds. Okay, so we started with pure substances, and we said that in pure substances we spoke about the two categories, that was elements and compounds. In elements we discussed further the properties of elements, and we discussed the different types. The elements can be broadly classified as metals, non-metals, metalloids and noble gases. Then we came to compounds, and then we discussed all the properties of compounds, and we saw how compounds also fit into the category of pure substances. So with this we have finished the topic of pure substances. So in your textbook we have finished till compounds. Okay, so the next topic that we'll be starting would be mixtures, right? So we have finished the whole topic of pure substances, that is pure substances, elements and compounds. So make sure that you can make a note of this, or you have all of that in your textbook. Please make sure you thoroughly read your textbook. You can mark down your doubts. Okay, and we'll be meeting soon in the next video. Till then, thank you everybody.